um, just waking up in the morning. I had to go to work early, and it was dark outside because it was winter. And I remember I turned the light on, and he shouted at me, "Turn that effing light off!" And I said, "No, I've got to go to work." And he picked it up and like threw it across the room, and I was like, "Whoa!" And I sort of knew then I like there was nothing. I don't know. I just felt like that was the last time I was going to see him, and I don't know. I felt like he felt that as well. And I mean, before I left, I just gave him a hug, and I felt like we both knew it was
Yeah.
like the last time, and then afterwards, because it was after I stopped seeing him, literally a week or so after, I think it came out in the paper that he was seen coming out of Kate Moss's flat or something,
Yeah.
and that's when it sort of he blew up, becoming really famous. And it was in the
Yeah.
paper in the finest shagger of the year and everything. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know that. So I thought to myself, God, I better get tested
Yeah.
for any, STD. So I got tested, and it turned I'd caught something from him. And I know it was from him because I hadn't been with anyone else. And
Okay.
I was really upset about it. I caught chlamydia from him, which is, I didn't know. I was just so naive about things like that. I'd never had an STD before, and I read about it, and it's probably not as bad as I thought it was, but I read about it, and it said, oh, it can make you infertile. And more than anything in my life, I wanted children one
Yeah, of
day, and
course. Of course.
I was very upset by it. And I remember calling him to just to tell him, oh, you need to get it, like, looked at, because you don't want to pass it on to anyone else. And he didn't answer. I left a voicemail, and I knew he was on his radio show that day with Matt Morgan that morning. So I listened to it, and he blatantly listened, showed Matt Morgan the voicemail, and because they were mocking me over it, and that
Okay.
was really upsetting. Sort of like Matt Morgan was like ribbing him about it, and they were like both laughing, and I just felt that really upset me. And I
So,
started to realize, oh, he's not very. He can't. He can be a very sort of uncaring person like that.
yeah.
Um,
So just take us back
yeah.
to when he threw the lamp. Was it at you? Did you feel like it was an attempt to hit you with something, or was it a moment of rage taken out on the lamp?
Uh, no, he didn't throw at me at all. He just threw it across the room, and I was at the other end of the room, and I felt like he's just a bit of a spoiled brat. Like
Okay, so it
he's
was
just.
more of a
I
throwing
think
your
he was.
toys out the pram than a
Yeah, like he
okay.
obviously it's not very nice when someone turns a light on when you're trying to sleep, but I had to get dressed for work,
Okay.
and
Yeah, fair
he
enough.
just, when I wouldn't turn it off, he just picked it up and threw it, and I was shocked by that because he'd never done anything like sort of like that before. But I just thinking of one thing, I remember, but not knowing it was such a womanizer. I remember once I saw some female knickers on the floor, so that should have given me a big red flag.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Well,
I
this
think
is the
I
thing.
just.
When you've got this glaze, this 23-year-old hoping for this situation to work out the way she wants, to find out that you were one of many, the Kate Moss scenario, then to find out about uh, uh you picked up from him. It's
Yeah,
it does paint the
yeah.
picture of like disrespectful,
Yeah.
egotistical, lost in his own world individual,
Mm.
right? And that in itself, when we look at his self-assessment, he was an imbecile, he was a fool, he was a sex addict, a substance addict. It 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 sounds very much like he is doing an honest assessment because none of what you're saying ties in with anything that he's been charged with. Now, can you honestly say, did you ever see anything that would have given you the indication that he would have ever done anything non-consensually, if that makes sense? Or
Um,
did you ever hear anything
no,
like
I
that?
mean, no. Did I what? Sorry, say that last bit again.
Or did you ever hear anything about that? If was there any rumors or anything like this going
Oh, not
around?
when I was seeing him because he wasn't particularly famous then. It was
Okay.
only afterwards he blew up. But I'll say that looking back, he's very selfish,
Hmm.
very all about his own needs and everything. very sort of just uncaring. But he'd sort of jumped from being very charming and like all like attentive to being very cold and not and saying things quite nasty. So, but like like I don't know how to say it, like in the bedroom sort of thing wise, he was very. He wasn't. I just want to establish he didn't rape me at all. But he just wasn't. How can I say it? He wasn't. Um, he was very selfish in that regard.
Okay.
I'd say, and yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen, that's the important thing, right? Is
but what I just want to say what you said earlier about he said he was an imbecile and anything.
Yeah.
Not that I should, because he probably doesn't even. Because I didn't realize at the time, but because I was one of so many women, he probably doesn't even remember me. But I've got messages between us to prove that it happened. But I just feel like not that he should personally apologize to me, but he said he was an imbecile and everything, but he hasn't actually said I'm sorry that I treated women like crap, or I'm sorry I really hurt women by my actions. He hasn't actually said that, which I think would make me feel a bit better, because it took me a long while to get over it really. And yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going on a bit.
Yeah, some sort of acknowledgement that maybe you weren't the nicest person to these ladies who clearly were a little bit infatuated by you, and that's a fair dues point. But again, the reason that I really wanted to talk to you, Louise, today was to paint this picture of what he was like back then. And if you were one of the girls who were in his little group of girls at that time, you can imagine that where he was before he got on Big Brother and where his ego would have went when he got on Big Brother, it would have been a massive ego boost for him. And there's people that are saying in the side chat, possible narcissist, all this. You've got to imagine, you've got to remember as well, having addiction, two different addictions, one the physical act he was addicted to and the substance he was addicted to, that will create a Jekyll and Hyde scenario. You know, that will create a split personality. And
he wasn't on anything when I was with him. He was very clean. I remember when I asked if I could have some coffee if I couldn't find any coffee, and he said, "Oh, I don't even have coffee because I don't want to get addicted to that." And so he seemed anyway very clean at the time.
All right.
But I knew when I was sort of seeing him, I knew about his past and his heroin addiction, and I felt so sorry for him that he went through that. And but I actually agree, looking back, that he most probably is a narcissist.
Yeah.
Which I've since I seem to be attracted to narcissists since then. I don't know whether that was just the start of my attraction to narcissists, but and since then I've become quite a bit of an expert on narcissists. So he does show all the signs of it, really, which I feel pity for narcissists, because they don't ask to be narcissists, but the very definition of a narcissist is someone who has no empathy for other people. They just care about themselves, basically. They're basically a bit like an emotional robot. They only sort of have emotion for themselves.
Sure.
Which is it's a sad thing. I mean, it'd be horrible to be like that, wouldn't it?
Well,
and they feel quite empty. They never satisfied. They can never, because they can't properly feel love for people.
Well, here's the thing.
So that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, well, 100%. And I would imagine that is a very accurate depiction of 20 years ago Russell Brand. And everyone has the sort of capability to change. So this new Russell Brand,
narcissists can't change. They can never be cured.
Well, this is what I'm going to ask you. So this new persona that we see of Russell Brand, do you believe that he's changed? Do you believe this is an honest depiction of who he is? You know, he's married now, he has children. Do you think the narcissistic tendencies could have been related to his addictions or his troubles or his mental health or all of that? And again, I just want to reiterate to the side chat, we're not talking about making excuses for the charges that he's been brought up. We're talking specifically about Louise's time period here and getting a character assessment of Russell Brand from someone who was close to him. We're not in any way discussing the current Russell. Well, we're about to, but we haven't been up till now. But how do you see the Russell Brand that he projects now?
Well, I think the fact that I personally think he's a narcissist, I think he potentially could be capable of these accusations. But then again, it's such a hard thing because it could have been rape. It could have been rape for the woman, but then he might not have realised it. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
quite, he might,
yeah, I
I just
understand.
think he's very entitled and he's very, I think he probably, all the fame probably went to his head. But then again, this happened before he was famous, so it's very difficult. And I've since found out, I don't know whether it's true, Ron, but I think I think the women, I thought at first the women were doing it at suing or something to get money. And
Yeah.
so I was a bit suspicious, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just I don't think it's to do with money. I think they just want to get justice. So that makes me think it's,
Okay. Well,
and and I'm not disputing the victims because
of course.
I personally think why would a woman go through all of that if it wasn't true? It must be an awful thing to go through. I feel like they're brave to speak up about
Well,
it.
a hundred
So
percent,
why
100%.
why would
I
they,
agree with
Ron,
you.
why would they go through that if it's nothing to do with money at the end of it? Why would they put themselves through that?
Well,
There's
making
no other reason than if it's true.
if they were making up. Okay, so I just want to say my response to this is going to be a general answer for women who have made claims against somebody like Russell Brand. I'm going to give you a two version of this answer. If all of these women reported these crimes the day after they happened and the police did nothing, and now they're being brought up, that's one thing. If these women are reporting their crimes now, that's another thing. I want to say women
That,
and men are completely capable of making up the most atrocious lies for no reason, no reason at all other than mad. Okay. But that is,
yeah, but maybe one woman, but not four. That's a
no,
very
100%, 100%. I agree. We're going to look at the case facts next. Don't worry. We are going to move on to that. But when it comes to his persona now, I think a lot of people had touched earlier on his shift in religion and his faith. And there's some accusations being thrown that possible theory could be that he had adopted this faith as a faith as a shield to sort of prove that he had changed. Do you think that that faith shift is an act, or do you believe that that's a proper representation of what he feels?
because I think he's a narcissist. I think it's an act. I
Okay.
think it's that personally,
Okay.
but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and listen, you are completely valid in your opinions. Okay, you're
I just want to say, from what I've seen, from what I've read articles and things. I feel so sorry for his family, his mum, his wife. They like from what I've read, they seem like lovely people. I just feel so heartbroken for them.
yeah.
It's just so I feel a bit emotional. I just feel it's just such a sad situation for everyone, really.
Yeah. Well,
It's very
accusations,
sad.
well, when charges are brought, accusations are brought, however you want to put it, the ripple effect of that can be devastating. And we have seen more than once where someone like Russell Brand has charges thrown at him. There's headlines, 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 and then nothing comes from it. But by then the damage is done. And here's another one, Louise, right? In a situation like this, if the identity of these women are protected in a crazy world, okay, we could almost say that if there was a huge conspiracy at work here, if it never goes to court, we never need to be given the names of these protected sources because it would be then just a headlines war. And sadly, that's kind of one of the realities that we live in. So if these women are real and if all these accusations are real, Russell Brand, if he is guilty, needs to be punished severely for the crimes, if any, that he has committed, the same way anyone should be held accountable for crimes that involve R.
Can I just say,
Of course.
I know from what I've read that accusations of rape, when
Yeah.
they go to the Crown prosecution, are rarely sort of, become charges. So I personally think there must be quite a lot of evidence for it to get to this stage. There must be.
Sure, sure. But the problem is conspiracy, assumption, the government, we have all of this. And I know
Yeah.
to some people it's far fetched, right? But trust me when I say, if this doesn't go to court, Louise, none of these women's names will ever be put forward. We'll never really hear the backstories, and it will just fizzle away. And
Yeah, but it
until
is going to court, isn't it? Isn't it?
well,
Because
yeah, but
he's
this
been
is this
charged.
is the thing. This is the thing. Just because it's planned doesn't mean it's going to happen. A lot of things can happen before then, and I'm not saying in any way that we should discredit anyone's story, but I need more information because I do not really trust some of the things that I get told. And maybe I'm a cynic, Louise,
Mm.
right? Maybe I'm a
No,
cynical,
I know.
maybe I'm
And
a
as
cynical
you've said
guy.
earlier, I think, which I know you can't talk too much about, but as you said earlier, it could be a major conspiracy thing against the fact that he's such a big truth seeker and he's got a lot of fans in that respect. And I admire, it's like part of me is triggered by him because I was very hurt by him, but then I really admire the truth seeking he does now, and I agree with a lot of it. So that, like you said before, it could be a massive thing just to
Here's
get him
well,
stop speaking.
here's an interesting one though. You were drawn to him before because of the comedy and all of that. Do you think maybe a shift in who you are now has drawn you back to him because of the truth seeking?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm not saying you're going to get love heart emoji eyes again and get drawn in,
Oh
but
no,
for someone who you've been through, I'm not going to say super. It was a horrible thing that you went through, okay, but it's
well, it's a lot of people get heartbroken over
right.
people that they. Yeah, I understand that. Like, it's not. I'm not saying, oh, poor me,
No,
sort of thing.
absolutely
I'm
not. I
just
didn't. No,
saying,
no, absolutely
I'm
not.
just telling you how my experience with him. But
Sure.
he basically didn't treat me very nicely. That's basically it.
Well,
And I've since sort of come to the conclusion that he's a narc. So I know that word gets bandied about so much nowadays, but
Louise, let's.
I personally think he definitely is. If can I just say
Yeah.
there's a YouTube channel called HG Tudor, and he does a brilliant analysis of him
Okay.
being a narcissist. So if
Okay.
anyone wants to listen to that, it's very good.
Well, one of the common tactics that narcissists use is love bombing, right? Would you say, looking back, all of these, and because one thing I want to do is get some balance here, right? So when you had moments where you weren't getting treated right, what would he do to draw you back in, or did you just draw yourself back in? Was there any sort of good?
Uh,
I think. Let
well,
me.
yeah, sorry.
On you.
I was so infatuated with him. He probably didn't really need to do that much love
Okay.
bombing, but he was very charming. He could be very charming. Like yeah, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I'm just getting little flashbacks of stupid little things I remember.
That's all right.
Anyway,
Well, let me ask you this, right?
um,
Can you give us some positive memories that you have with Russell to balance out? Because we can't sit here and assume that every day was
yeah,
a lamp throwing day, right? There must have been days
no,
where you were
no.
like, oh wow, maybe I can change him. Because we spoke about this earlier, that
Mm.
sometimes women get that in their head, and that's what draws them to the bad boy image, is that, oh, I'm going to be the one, right? So tell us a couple of moments that are, nice memories, if any at all. But if you can, just for
Well,
context.
apart from him saying I was like beautiful and all this, the only thing I can think of that I thought, oh, that's nice, is he used to always pay for my taxi.
Wow. Wow. Now,
That's the
let me,
only really
wow.
thing I can
Okay.
think of.
All right. So just to be clear,
Sorry,
this
that's
is
not
how
good. That's not
no,
good.
this is how besotted you were with Russell Brand, right? Let's cut the crap here. You were so besotted that,
Oh God.
obviously when he threw the lamp, it was over for you, right? So it wasn't like that every day. But let's be honest, you were sucked in, and it happens to a lot of people, men and women. So there's no judging here. And I just want to say, I praise you for coming and telling your story, because a lot of people do get sucked in by someone online, someone on TV. It's an age-old
Yeah, but
story.
I put myself out there to be sucked in, so
Yeah.
I blame myself really, but that
And
it's my fault for letting someone treat me badly.
well, you were
But yeah,
23.
I went on to have like sort of abusive relationships after that, so I don't know whether that was just the start of. But I
Yeah.
went on to have like narcissistic relationships with like a few men. So I can see now, like I can know what they're like. So and yeah. Sorry, I keep going on about him
No,
being a
no,
narcissist, but
that's all
I
right.
just know he is. I just know he is,
That's all right.
which is
You're
sad.
entitled to your opinion. You have an experience, and you're taking it from a personal experience. No, you're not casting judgments off the media and things like that. So it's all right. Don't worry. But what?
I also feel sorry for him. I don't know why I do, but I just feel sorry for him too, because he's got family, and maybe he is trying to like he obviously is trying to be a good person, but I just don't think he's capable of being
Okay. Well, here's an interesting one.
yeah.
Marisol has said, Russell sounds like a horrible boyfriend. Would you say that's a true statement? 20 years ago.
Well, I
20 years
wasn't.
ago.
Yeah. Well, it didn't really develop to a proper boyfriend girlfriend thing, but
Yeah.
from what I saw of him, yeah, not very. When one to one, not very,
Okay.
not very nice. No,
Okay. Well, listen,
unfortunately.
that's your experience, and I think we can all look at your.
Especially the fact that when I caught the STD from him,
Yep.
he didn't even say sorry, or he didn't even acknowledge it, apart from laughing about it on the radio show.
Yeah,
Um,
that's pretty
he
brutal.
didn't care. He just didn't care. Didn't care at all.
Was there a part of
So
you?
that made me realise that he didn't care about me at all, at all.
Can I ask you
So I was very hurt.
can I ask you a bit of a deep philosophical question? I don't want you to think that
No, sure.
I'm being out of key here. Do you think there's possibly a part of you that is so dead set on pushing the narcissist factor with your encounter
Mhm.
because it almost gives you a shield from just how sucked in you were at 23? And if you remove the narcissist factor, there's not.
No, because at the time I didn't think he was.
Okay.
Well, I didn't actually know what a narcissist was at the time, but I just I've researched a lot about it because my son's dad's one.
Yeah.
And I just I've I've done a lot of research into it to try and understand it, and it's very sad. It's a very sad thing. I think I don't know whether it's one in six people are or something like that from my research.
Well,
It's
here,
not as if it's rare or anything,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm not shielded by the fact that I was infatuated by him. My opinion, he is a narcissist. That's all.
yeah,
I'm
that's
not gonna
okay. That's
waver
okay.
from that.
I'm just pressing you. It's what I do.
Yeah, no, you can ask me anything. No, I'm not taking offense. No.
I didn't think you were. Don't worry. But it's
Mhm.
just it's an interesting story, and I gave you an analogy that you didn't really relate to, right? But when we talk about situations like this, and we hear about young girls who are besotted with it, and I said if Russell Brand was a singer in a band, right, and
Mm.
there was a stream of the word groupies. I hate to use that word, right?
Right.
It's one of those scenarios where I think you feel like with that stigma when it comes to groupies and bands, you kind of expect what you're walking into. Whereas with what you were walking into, there wasn't social media, there wasn't that presence. It was a guy on TV that you met in a bar, had a real encounter with, and maybe there wasn't the warning signs because of the culture difference between the two types of celebrity. But did you feel at all like you had any inclination that you were walking into just being one of his girls, effectively?
As time went on, I got suspicions, like obviously the massive red flag about females' knickers on the floor.
Yeah.
I must have just been blinded, but I looking back, I was such a naive girl. I know 23 is not that young, but I was at the time. I came from a small, very small village out in the sticks. I moved to London to be near him, which is totally pathetic. I know he probably laughs if he knew I did that, but I was so naive. I was so streetwise. Is that a word? I was just so trusting. I I didn't think there were really bad people, but like nasty people. I was just stupid. I was basically stupid. I can't remember what the question was, Ron. I'm sorry. I've gone off on a tangent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, Ron
What was the
just
question?
Ron. No,
No,
no, no,
I
no, don't
didn't
worry, don't
know.
worry.
Sorry.
Ron wants to get to the bottom of what the truth is in all this. And do you think that his split personality could have been a manifestation of guilt of things that happened before he met you? Did he ever show signs of somebody who was troubled and had something to say but never said it?
What do you mean split personality?
Well, you know, when we talk about how he was one
Oh,
person
what,
on
the 1 minute he was charming and
Yeah,
then 1 minute
yeah.
he was
do you
grumpy, do you mean?
think that that could have been guilt manifesting from horrible acts that happened a few years before he happened to you? Did he look like somebody who was troubled by something that he wasn't?
What, by things he went through when he was little, you mean?
No, what I mean is
Oh,
the
sorry.
crimes that these women are accusing him of happened
Yeah.
before you
Oh,
met
I
him.
see.
Do you
Yeah, that
think
happened before.
do you
I
think that
think
you
one of
could have
them was.
been seeing somebody struggling with their own conscience?
Well, I might have done at the time, but now I think I can't stop talking about it. Now I think he's a narcissist, then he hasn't got a guilty conscience, Ron. I know a lot
Yeah,
about narcissism, so no, I don't think he has got any guilt. I
yeah.
think he justifies it.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it sounds like he treated you terribly and not a good
I
individual.
let him treat me terribly.
Yeah.
So that's my fault, I think. It's my fault.
Yeah.
I don't blame him. He's just the person he is. I don't blame him. I put myself out there to be treated terribly. So hopefully, well, I didn't really learn from it, but hopefully it is quite. Afterwards, when he blew up being famous,
Yeah.
it was very triggering for me because all of a sudden I was like heartbroken, and everywhere he'd be everywhere on every channel,
Yeah.
every radio, it'd just be everywhere, and it was really
Nightmare.
unpleasant.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, so I try. I haven't read any of his books or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Let me
So I
ask you
just
something.
thought, oh,
Let me ask you something, Louise. Do you feel like I'm trying to change your narrative or push for you to say that Russell Brand was anything other than a horrible, horrible partner to you? Do you feel like I'm trying to change your narrative at all? Because there's a few people in the side chat that are thinking that I'm trying to defend Russell Brand. I'm trying to get an accurate description
sorry.
of who he was, if that makes sense.
No, I just think you're putting a different a different case across, which everyone's got their own opinion, but it's just because I know
Yeah.
so much about narcissism now. I just know he doesn't mean to be the way he is. He just can't help it,
Well, if
and he
you're
probably doesn't even realize that he's a narcissist. But he is.
100%, 100%.
He is.
If you're watching this and you're a
Yeah.
hater of Ron, please share the live stream with something like, "Oh my
No.
God, this guy is defending Russell Brand." Please, it'll really
No,
help
I know
the
you're not.
viewership.
You've got to put a different side across.
Yeah,
It,
man.
it can't be like echo chamber, like
No,
you
well,
said. Like, you've got
100%. For me, you got to ask questions. You got to ask questions. And like I say, if you disagree with me, that's okay. But trust me, I'm only here for the truth with everything that I cover. And I thought that Louise's take was going to be a unique perspective. But it's very, very interesting when these things happen and the timing of these things happen. And it raises massive suspicions. Your story paints the picture 100%. I think people would agree that there's an argument for him being a narcissist. I think the way you were treated on that radio station after you discovered what you discovered is horrendous. I'll be honest, and I'm being blunt here. You paint a picture of somebody who was used by someone for their own gain, for their own purpose and desires, and was cast aside when you decided to leave. There was no trying to get you back or pull you back in. That must have been horrific to come to terms with, and paints a picture of a man back then who the phrase narcissist would be quite an eloquent fit. Put a 1 in the side chat if you agree with that. Put a 2 if you disagree. Put a 3 if Ron's way of explaining things is too confusing. And I just want to remind everybody, Louise has been very kind to say that if you guys want to come and ask questions, she'll remain on the live. Any disrespectful nonsense, and you will be cast out into the realm of shadows. But you're very
Can
wrong.
I also say
Yeah.
to sort of like support your point?
Yeah.
The fact that he's been married for quite a while and he's had children and he hasn't broken up with that person. That shows that, I mean, unless she comes forward and says, "Oh, he treated me horribly and everything," maybe he has changed. But just me personally think he's a narcissist. I don't think he's capable of it. But unless she, like in the future, it comes out that he treated her horribly,
Yeah.
then maybe there's possibility he has, because maybe he isn't a loving husband, and I don't know.
Well,
I
absolutely.
just hope
Heather,
I hope